slide on sales. Some of this is commercially sensitive, but it's clearly developing well, although it's early days, and we think there's an opportunity for a great business. The avocados themselves, Andrew mentioned there's 50,000 tonnes of cherries, I think, and 2 billion grown, or 2 million grown. The numbers are quite big. Yeah, in the avocado world, there's 2 billion tonnes of avocados grown, and about half of that is in Mexico. Australia grows about 50,000 tonnes, so it's a smaller player. Sorry, 2 million tonnes. It's actually quite similar. 2 million tonnes globally, half of it in Mexico. But most here in Australia are grown in Queensland. Hence the model around working with Avocados Australia as the industry body and working with the larger growers who are part of that. So Avocados Australia as the peak body have an objective of trying to add value for growers and trying to make products healthy and profitable and safe. And we engaged early with Anthony Allen, the CEO of Avocados Australia, and he very kindly offered these words of support at about the time we launched, and touched on, I suppose, the key theme of this talk is, so why should the industry embrace this type of product? Our views were quite clear that there were unmet needs around perishability and waste. If we developed a product that solved those problems, then we could be more flexible in the type of raw material we took. And so we're able to take smaller fruit. We're able to take fruit that may have some surface damage. Provided that the fruit was in great condition, it was perfectly fine for our processing needs. In terms of the channel options that Andrew touched on, there are many growers, particularly further north and in less popular areas, where the fruit that doesn't meet the specifications of the retail trade, there's relatively limited options. You know, there's petrol, there's roadside stalls, there's markets, and while they're all increasing, they do have limits in regional areas where many of the avocados are grown. So our focus was to try and have a product that was able to be distributed nationally and indeed internationally, and give them an option. So we acknowledge Anthony's support and certainly acknowledge the trade support. And while it's early days, we think AvoFresh is doing the sort of rates of sales that the research predicted, and we think it's got a bright future. But we need your help, and would love to have you try the product, those who haven't already, and support a local industry and a company that wants to grow the Australian avocado industry. So thank you very much.
Great. We're going to welcome both our speakers up to the stage. So while they're doing it, everybody on their feet. Can everybody standing up? Given that we've been reminded this morning that we are part of the health and wellbeing industry, we're going to do our little exercise here. So stretch as you talk to your neighbour if you feel free while the guys get ready. Now, just relax and take a seat when you are ready. So this is a Q&A session. We've got about a quarter of an hour to drill more information out of our guest speakers. Just remind you, if you do want to ask a question, please could you make your way forward to the microphone. And I just want to retract a word I said just to Jill and Andrew. I'll take back the word pick on in terms of our retail colleagues. Of course, the word I should have used was utilise, and say it's wonderful to have retailers in the room. So we might utilise you in this next quarter of an hour. Anyone? Questions from the floor? Yeah, outstanding, certainly.
Mike Badcock. Andrew, when you're doing your cherries, what do you do with the pips? Are they de-pipped before you crush, or do you crush the pips as well?
That was one of the challenges, actually. Now, the pips stay in the cherries, and when you're using a bag press or a bladder press at a winery, you've got to be very, very careful, because you can obviously... The bladder is very, very expensive, and we managed to rupture several. And so it's a matter of modifying the technique so we could use existing winemaking equipment So then the pips are actually just discarded. But we have had some interest just recently for somebody to purchase those pips to make heat packs of some description. So hopefully there might be some sale for them as well.
Further questions from the floor? Just while we're thinking of those, probably a question to both of you. If you were to just highlight the three key either challenges or success factors, obviously you've come at it from a slightly different angle. Andrew and Craig, Andrew would like to go first. What were, if there was three things that you could highlight that?
I guess persevering. I guess is the name of our property where the packing shed is located is Perseverance, and I think with most of these agricultural things it does take a lot of perseverance. So sticking at something you believe in, I guess that's the number one message. It probably surprises how much capital had to be invested, even though we're outsourcing most of the project. It was for a family type operation. It all has to be funded, and all the development and the manufacture of, and then not selling that stock for a period of time. So I guess being aware of the funding costs, and then I guess the downstream marketing. It was actually relatively easy to get to get 100 pallets or 150 pallets of cherry juice sitting in the shed, but the work that was involved in developing the sales and the marketing to where it is today, that was quite extraordinary. So I guess not to underestimate the amount of work that has to be spent on amount of time on market development.
Craig?
From our perspective, I'd jotted down three things. I think the first one is to understand the consumer and how they are using the product, what are their attitudes to the product you're wanting to market, and look to them for what the opportunity is. The second thing I'd say is having got that knowledge, having got that understanding of the consumer, then bring in the knowledge that you need to help execute that, and that's whether it be marketing, whether it be product development, whether it be growing a different variety, whether it be gather that around you to get a business that's robust in that way. And probably the third thing would be to conceive the business in global terms, so where it's located, your cost structures, the logistics issues, I think all need to be understood in the food game about where you're best to be globally, because many of these products over the next 15 to 20 years are increasingly going to be serviced globally. And we were very comfortable with this region of the world being a great place for the avocado business, not because it's the biggest, but because there's the economics of growing avocados are as good as anywhere, and the access to knowledge and a trade that's willing to engage to enable us to learn, has been key to getting it going. So we didn't want to be in a situation where we would locate it in one place and in 5 years' time. I think Andrew mentioned how the reason for moving into cherries was about the dynamics of the apple industry, and we didn't want to be in a position where we felt we could be usurped quickly. So,
just following up on that, so what sort of work did you do in terms of global research around the competitiveness of the Australian processed product that you're producing, and how does that currently fit?
Well, we looked at the issues around. There are a couple of companies doing similar type products that are based in North America, and so we looked at why are they based where they are, and what are the issues that are going on with Mexican supply. And we could see that they didn't have great relationships with the grower base. First of all, there were a great deal of pricing volatility and pressure on the processors because of the emergence of the US as an export market for fresh fruit, and so that was putting pressure on the processing fruit availability. We also understand the volumes that are grown around the world, and I suppose the ability for Australia has a modern food processing, food packaging capability that many other countries that produce low-cost fruit don't, and that enabled us to use innovation and technology to keep ahead. So we've got a good understanding of where we could have sourced. The other aspect is there's some seasonality issues. If we want to maintain a consistent price year-round, then having the broad geographic spread that Australia offers enables us to do that, where in Mexico, for example, there's a high season and a season where there's virtually no availability. So maintaining a year-round supply, which is a comment that Greg made before in terms of offering consistent pricing, is an important part of the business model in terms of what retailers and the consumer want. So all of those factors considered, I mean, of course, we're biased to be based here, but having gone through all of those factors, we were comfortable that this is the right place to base that business.
Hi.
Got a question relating from a producer point of view. Obviously, you're focused, Andrew, I initially picked up from you that you were looking at rescuing a part of your crop you couldn't market, and the opportunity for Craig was identifying a product in an industry that was being unused. And I also picked up, Andrew, that you plan to have a production that is driven just to supply that by mechanical harvesting. What sort of share does end up with a producer, and how are you going to manage your diverse locations and freight logistics and that impact on the possible return to growers and your need for efficiency in your processing plant by not having zillions spent in a number of processing plants?
I guess all of our cherry production is located within about 250 kilometres of Orange. It's it's sort of a fairly unique area, as much as we're right on the cusp of the tablelands at 1,100 metres, and that's where the packing shed's located. But within 2 hours or 2.5 hours drive, we drop down to 200 metres out at Narromine, where the earliest sites are. So I guess there'll always be a centralisation of packing and of processing, with all the fruit being brought back to Orange. The dual-purpose orchards are really. The processing is really a fallback. They actually are planted for fresh fruit, but if the weather turns against us, we thought it'd be easy to run a sort of a grape harvester over those trellises and pick the cherries, and we'll find out this year. We did a little bit of a trial last year, but I guess it was also about the fundamental of our business is growing fresh cherries for export.